This one might better want to play.
Maybe I will. I just was like at my house. Right here.
I don't even know if we're gonna get started. Sorry for the delay. Dylan's professor lesson is going to introduce Matt Stuart.
Hi, I'm Dylan Beckman, one of the photography professors here. Welcome to the Department of Studio Art Visiting Artist Series, which is possible through the generous donation of the Francis Gimbel Goud Fund. We are excited to introduce Matt Stuart. A bunch of you took his workshop, so you should know him by now. Those of you who don't, Matt was born in 1974. He was raised in the leafy suburbs of Harrow, northwest London. He admits to a less than distinguished school career, but was called upon at age 11 to play a trumpet solo in front of the Queen Mother. Her Majesty's reaction is not recorded. A little later, in 1986, Matt discovered skateboarding after watching the film Back to the Future. Skating occupied his every waking moment until 1994, when he noticed that girls had got a lot more interesting. He also indulged in a brief, ill-advised affair with Kung Fu. Matt's father, keenly aware that his son would never be the next Bruce Lee, introduced him to photography, handing over books by Robert Frank and Henri Cartier-Bresson. Ever since then, photography has been Matt's overriding passion, although he's still quite interested in skateboards and girls, but thankfully not Kung Fu. Please give a warm welcome to Matt Stuart.
Please mute your cell phones. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Now, the mic has gone missing. So, can you hear me in the back?
Yep.
Yeah. Can you hear me halfway?
Yes.
And can you hear me at the front?
Yes.
All right. If I forget to be loud, just say, like, shout, "I can't hear you," and I'll work on it. So, thank you so much for coming to my talk about me. That's like me talking about me is my favorite thing. Thank you very much to Professor Bick for inviting me here. It's been a real sort of privilege to see some of the students over the last couple of days and how you work. Seeing the facilities here, it's like absolutely amazing. Like 10 out of 10. Right? I've spoken at Oxford University, I've spoken all over the world, and the facilities here and the attitude that you all seem to have is brilliant. So whatever you're doing, whatever you're eating, or whatever you're doing, keep doing it. So I just want to say thanks for that. So I'm going to start talking about me. I kind of forget that my bio kind of leads, like sort of ruins some of my surprises here, but anyway, we'll work with it. So the trumpet was the first obsession that I had. I don't know how many people here are obsessed about something. Put your hand up. Like truly obsessed. Yeah? Okay. This was my first obsession. It was the trumpet. And I used to make my mum cry a lot because I was not a nice kid. And I started playing the trumpet. And I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. And I started to make my mum cry because she liked the sound of the music. And that really sort of motivated me. I didn't want to make my mum cry because I was being bad anymore. I wanted to make my mum cry because she was proud of me. So I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. I also had a really inspirational trumpet teacher called Mr. Kuehl. And I would play for him and I would play for my mum. And hopefully you will have inspirational teachers or people here that motivate you to work. Anyway, this was my first big inspirational teacher and my first obsession. I would practice and I would practice and I would practice. One of the things I just want to get out of the way really quickly is that I do not believe in talent, okay? I think talent is a sort of gatekeeper word. I'm talented, you're not. Suffer. So talent is the produce of hard work. Hard work, hard work, hard work. They never tell you about the hard work. People always just talent there. So work hard. Anyway, highlight of my trumpet career with my little red bow tie was playing a solo in front of the Queen Mother at Westminster Abbey. And I remember having to stand up in front of her. So with all due respect, this is nothing. You stand up in front of the Queen Mother and play a blinking trumpet. And anyway, like I say, we don't know what she thought of it. And to be absolutely honest, she died quite soon afterwards, but it wasn't my fault. And so did Mr. Kuehl. Come on. Ah. And as soon as Mr. Kuehl died, I gave up the trumpet because one of my reasons for playing the trumpet had left the building. 2 or 3 years later, and probably making my mum cry for the wrong reasons again, I discovered my next obsession because of this film. This was the first time I think I fell in love with a person. And I think it was probably the first time I got absolutely obsessed. Michael J. Fox was the person. And this was 1986, and skateboarding was that's me. I think this fashion is starting to come like full circle. These were, I don't know, I probably had a 26-inch waist, and these were 40-inch trousers. I could probably fit another one of me in those trousers. Anyway, I practiced and I practiced and I practiced. I started to get good at skateboarding. I got sponsored for skateboarding because I practiced and practiced and practiced, and I seriously practiced. I went crazy. Like to try and make a trick, I would do it all day. I had no off. I am the sort of definition of OCD, like just completely obsessed. That's my favorite picture, mainly because I've got hair. What happens next? Then I fell in love with my first girlfriend, and I decided to give up skateboarding. And I didn't do much for a while. I then did a bit of Kung Fu. Kung Fu was very interesting because it taught me how to move. Moving was interesting. That was sort of one of the things that I found useful. And then I realized that, I was absolutely rubbish at that. That's not me, by the way. And then I sort of had a period where I hadn't been to college. I wasn't particularly well educated, although I was, I was okay. And my dad, who was a graphic designer, and he's retired now, he was a fantastic graphic designer. So I had a creative dad. He said, Matthew, you might need to get a job. And I said, oh, but Father, I don't know what I want to be. And he sort of said something like, I don't really give a damn about what you want to be. You just need to get a job. So I got a job in a call center for 2 years, and I answered customer complaints. I used to do about 100 complaints a day. And I kind of got obsessed about that as well. I just thought, how many people can I make happy today? How many people can I make happy today? And so I used to sort of try to make people happy while I was doing this terrible job that was really soul destroying. During that time, I was given a couple of books, one by my father, who was sort of thinking, oh my God, this kid's like in trouble, what's going to happen? He's coming home, he's being shouted at every day. A couple of books, one by Robert Frank. Who's heard of Robert Frank? No, you have to go, yay, Robert Frank. Right, okay, you all need to find out about who Robert Frank is, because he made probably the most important photography book of the last century, called The Americans. I guess we've probably got some Americans here somewhere in the audience. And the other book he bought me was by Henri Cartier-Bresson, famous French photographer. At the end of this sort of, this was the obsession, I got really, really into these two guys. And then he sent me on a workshop. So we've been doing workshops today. A few people came on a workshop today. I was sent on a workshop with this man, Leonard Freed, in 1998. And this is one of Leonard Freed's pictures. This is the best photograph that you're going to see during this slideshow, by the way. It all goes downhill from here, okay? So Leonard Freed was an amazing photographer. This was when Martin Luther King was given the Nobel Peace Prize. And Leonard, whose workshop I went on, explained this was the moment that the man became an icon. And this picture pretty much sums it up, because it's not about meeting Martin, it's about touching Martin. This is sort of, we're in Jesus territory. He had become an icon. This is such a great photograph. It's one of the most, we can talk about it, but finger there. The authority, line here, him reaching back. And how did Leonard know to be at the back of the car? This is why Leonard's amazing. Because if you're going to photograph a famous person in a car, you're at the front. This picture is, and even look, a little bit of a face here. Anyway, moving on, it's just too good, I can't cope. So I was taught over a weekend or so by Leonard Freed. I saw him photograph, I saw him speak, I saw him explain things, and then I was absolutely addicted for life, like from that moment. My grandma died, and she left me £3,000, which was a lot of money at the time, and I had the option of paying off my credit card debt or buying a Leica camera. I still owe £3,000 to the credit card company. Then I went out and started photographing like a lunatic. 1998, 2002, it took me 2 years to get a good picture. And I photographed every day. This was the first picture that I thought was any good. And it was the day that the Millennium Wheel was erected. And randomly a man turned up to look at it being erected, and he had a wheel strapped to his back. And little did he know there was a sort of nervous, big sort of fingers and thumbs guy standing behind him trying to get a photograph. Took about 18 or 19 pictures of this, by the way, and only one worked. And one of the things that I was explaining today to some of the people who are on the workshop is to sort of shoot, take, especially if it's really good. You know, don't think like, oh yeah, got it. It doesn't work like that. And so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to, so that's sort of brief history of me. I'm going to show you 3 books. I'm going to show you my street photography, which is probably what I'm most well known for. I'm going to show you some work from America in a place called Slab City. Has anyone heard of Slab City here? Is it yes or no? Yes. Yeah. Can you still hear me at the back, by the way?
Yes.
Good. And then I'm going to show you some a small project that I recently did during the COVID period. Okay, so this is the work from London. Who's been to London? Did you like it?
Yes.
Oh, not many. Anyway, this is a very famous quote by a gentleman called Samuel Johnson, 1777. This is the front cover of my book. So it's, why, sir, you find no man at all intellectual who is willing to leave London. No, sir, when a man is tired of London, he is tired of life, for there is in London all that life can afford. Samuel Johnson, 1777. I absolutely put the 1777 on the front cover of this book because people don't talk like that anymore. But the quote's extremely famous, okay? So the book is all that life can afford. Now, first picture, please. Oh, it's me, isn't it? Oh, you're doing it.
Well,
We can, okay, right. It's got a bus red sort of first page. And so what I thought I'd do is show you how the book actually is, so you can sort of have an idea of how the book works, and I can explain to you how the book, and some of the things that I had to think about in putting the book together. This is the first picture. Can anyone spot anything strange going on here? Anyone? Anyone?
That man's nose.
Thank you, sir. So this was a cane, and he was doing that for about 20 seconds. Some people ask me if it's a sausage, and some people wonder whether it's a gherkin. So this was a good start to the book because they're looking into the book. We don't know what's going to happen in the rest of the book, but it's a good opening picture for the book. I spend a lot of time on street corners, waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And I like sort of confusion and the muddle that happens on a street corner. In fact, if anyone's been photographed on a street corner over the last few days, it's probably my class who've been on street corners. So here we go. This lady. These are all taken quite close up with a Leica camera. I sometimes do this. Feel free to just no one can run out of the door with it, but just pass it around, and can you make sure that it's passed back? So all of the pictures were taken with something like that. A lot of the photographs aren't really what they seem. So she's not walking past the building. This is a hoarding. That's the lot. And sequencing photo books is really something that I also get obsessed about. And I think a lot about how, the page before, and so one of the things with this is, you see that there? And you see how her hair leads up to the kid? I'm going to probably break this remote. Anyway. So I get really interested in what the picture below the picture above is doing. Okay. I always have a camera with me. This picture was taken whilst sitting at a pub with a pint of beer, and I had a small camera, and a kid just ran up and jumped up on the post box, and I picked up the camera, pressed the button, had another sip of beer. It was really as easy as that. I was just very lucky that the kid did what he did, and I had a camera. If you don't have a camera, you're not really a photographer. So whoever's doing photography here, if you don't have a camera with you, And so a lot of the photographs that I'm going to show you, you'll look at and go like, and like, what the hell is that? This is probably one of my favorite photographs. And this was a sort of, after a very, very long time of waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for this type of picture, I got one. Now, this picture is a mess, but the colors are all in sync. From the purple to the pink to the blue, to the purple to the pink to the blue, the reds, the purple. And then there's, I think, 7 or 8 index fingers going on here, okay? Some of them are super tiny, but I love this kind of stuff. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or whatever. Can't count. But yeah, it's a big muddle, but it's organized. Okay, and it's really, really difficult to do. The red hat, obviously. And then it says is our small print. So it's what I'm trying to do is tell the viewer to look at it for a longer amount of time. With this book, the sequencing of the book was very important. And what I needed to try and do is to go from sunshine to a different type of weather without anyone noticing. And this is where, so it's red hat to red hat, and then from this point onwards, the weather starts to change. One thing that I don't know, just in life, never think you've missed it, okay? Never think you've missed a picture, never think you've missed something. Because if you do that, you sort of like drop everything and go, oh, damn it, I missed it, damn it. And a lot of the time it happens again. This man yawned, and I heard him yawning on the other side of the street, and I thought, he's gonna do it again, he's gonna do it again. And I started running, and I set the camera, and as I got to him, he did it again. So, and I think this is really important. It's a sort of positive thinking thing, but don't think you've missed it. Think the moment will continue until it absolutely doesn't. All right, because as soon as you chuck it down and go, damn, it happens again. I'm into these sort of very muddly pictures where 2 or 3 things are happening at the same time. The thing I like most about this picture is how these 2 faces sort of interconnect. Dogs. I like photographing dogs. That dog is dead now, sadly. This was an advert down New Bond Street. And I walked past it for about 6 months thinking, that's a great advert. That's just such a great advert. I love that advert. Oh, wow. Look at that advert. Look at that advert. Oh, amazing. That advert, that advert, that advert. And then one day I walked past that advert and that was there. Like chasing things that are flying. People don't come near me when I'm doing this. Now we're really changing the weather. The weather's starting to get rainy, okay? So that was, the wind was a big, the bag was a sort of signifier that the weather was going to change. One of the nicest feelings, I think, doing sort of candid photography is that you can sometimes feel invisible, okay? And I mean, like, as far as superpowers go, there's obviously flying, which is well up there, but invisibility would be like rad, wouldn't it? It's really great. And this particular picture, I took about 16 or 17 photographs of this scene, standing next to this gentleman, about here. And no one saw me. And it feels such a privilege to sort of go into a moment, share a moment with people, and then leave the moment without having bruised it in any way. Anyway, I enjoy that. There was a man dressed up as a devil, standing next to a man who got his parking ticket. And I remember seeing it and going like, this isn't real. This is not real. I used to do this in London for about 8 hours a day, every day, for about 15 years. And I think I've got about 50 pictures that I really like. Okay, so. I like this photograph. This is a man who is lost. We presume he's lost because he's got a map and he's on the phone. But when people get lost, they start to they do this kind of thing, you know? The men behind him are not lost. I don't think they're lost. They look like they know where they're going. And the collision between the two has made this strange hand sandwich. By the way, really lost people. I love body language. I'm really, really interested in body language. I just go straight down here and go, okay, cross legs. Not cross legs. Why is that? Why are they all crossing their legs? The really lost people, and if you look out for them from this point onwards, you'll see them. Most really lost people, they find a corner and they turn their back on the action and they do the phone calls like that and they look at the maps like that. When you're really, really, really lost, you find a corner. This is the Brexit look. Okay, there's not one smiling face in that picture. It took a long time to get that. Okay, this was a fun story. I was really hungover. It was a Sunday. I'd been out on the Saturday. I was going to the chemist to buy some sort of Alka-Seltzer, we call it in the UK, but I don't know what it would be here. But it's like Alka-Seltzer. That's bad. Like, you know, bad hangover. And I was absolutely certain that nothing was going to happen that day. But I picked up a camera, put it in my pocket, walked out the door, went to the pharmacy. On the way, a convertible car on a rainy day stopped at the traffic lights with a dog that looked like it was driving it. And I thought maybe I was still drunk. I took 2 or 3 pictures quickly, got my Alka-Seltzer, went home. And about 6 months later, this picture was published in the Guardian newspaper, which is a kind of pretty, like it's a good newspaper. I had a sort of portfolio in this newspaper, and I got a phone call from the owners. Da, da, da. And this is where we start to get worried as street photographers. We're like, oh gosh, what's this all about? And they said, we've just seen the picture of the dog Joe in the newspaper, and we love it so much, and we were just hoping that you could send us a print of Joe in the car, because Joe's just died. Joe always gets the biggest R. Not my grandma. So of course I sent them a print, and Joe lives on. Okay? Joe. I'm going to speed up a little bit because I've got other things to talk about. This was a man doing a somersault. I recommend people not to be listening to their headphones when they're taking photographs, because although it's a lovely experience, you don't hear stuff. And hearing stuff is probably, you're taking out one major sense. And with most with photography, some stuff happens through the ears before the eyes. You hear the bang. And this was a conversation between two schoolboys, and they were dancing with the buskers at Trafalgar Square, and one of them said, "Why don't you do your somersault?" I was listening in, because I'm nosy, and the other one said, "Well, I'm going to have to practice it on the grass first." And so he practiced it on the grass first, and he slipped and he fell on his bum when he landed, and he didn't do the somersault again. But I had got the practice attempt, and no one knew he was going to do the somersault. This man was a bus spotter. So he would stand and wait and look for buses. And so I saw him around a lot, but the dog was not a bus spotter. This was the moment that the weasel slipped from his shoulder and hung by the neck. The weasel was fine. Often, especially with street photography and photography in general, people say, "Don't photograph the homeless. Don't photograph the homeless. Leave the homeless alone." And to a certain extent, I do agree. However, this picture doesn't show a face. It is somebody in a box. And at the moment that I passed this box, a crucifix was. And what you need to do, I think anyway, is take the picture and think about it later. Think about whether you're going to show it to people later, but take the picture. Don't go, "Oh, no. Take the picture, take the picture, take the picture." Anyway, it's one of my favorite pictures. Tightrope walker. Contortionist, yeah. I often find it funny that people with headphones in and bags, they don't. The iPhone or whatever it was in the bag, and she kept her headphones in. It's strange. That's me. He was so cool. And it's this very, very close. You have to react very quickly. A lot of my pictures are taken to the left. I'm left-eyed, left-handed. And so I find it easy to do that. I don't find it easy to do that. This one's a bit... Someone telling me to get out of the way of this bus. Headless man followed by a head. To be absolutely honest, I didn't see the head, but when I got the contact sheet back and I was looking through the film, there was a head. And if I was going to sort of bullshit you, I'd be like, "Yeah, I saw the head." But I didn't see the head. Just lucky. But I was out there, And there's a famous I think it's Gary Player quote, and he was a golfer, and he said, it's funny, the harder I practice, the luckier I get. That's, you might be right. I'm going to start whizzing a little bit. Bubbles, probably the most difficult thing to photograph. Bubbles do not do as they are told. You can blow a bubble, but you have to be very, very lucky to get it to cover the eye. I have no idea what they were doing. I used to get, I was, well, I still am, but I used to be really into it, really into it, and then I'd get tired. And so I was actually sitting on the steps of Trafalgar Square, and I was tired, and then I started to see the legs walking in the background, and I put my camera down. I was like that. Because this is what you do, you know, when you're mad and obsessed. And I spent about half an hour doing that. And because I was there for so long, this pigeon just started walking up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And one of the pictures felt really right. I didn't know that I'd got this, but it felt like right, and it was okay. And that's the last picture in the book. And I put that picture at the end because it's actually, it's very different to a lot of the other photographs, but it's also quite a nice way to sort of say goodbye. And so that's that book. That's the end of that book. That's how it looks. I'm going to show you something totally different now. And I think it's, so that's the street photography. That's what I'm well known for. But I don't really like titles or names or putting myself into a package. So that was street photography. This was a project that I did over 4 months. So the last stuff I showed you was 15 years, doing it every day for 15 years. This was 4 months, doing it every day for 4 months. And this is a book called Into the Fire, and it was made in America, in a place called Slab City. Anyone heard of Slab City? Okay, so Slab City is a sort of off-the-grid camp in the Sonoran Desert. It gets very, very hot there. It's about 60 or 70 miles from the Mexican border. And a lot of sort of transient, a lot of people without homes, a lot of travelers, train jumpers, people who are on the run, people who don't want to be known about, go there. And I thought it would be interesting to go and live there for 4 months and see how that felt, and see how I experienced it, and to take photographs. So what did I do? I borrowed a friend's van. I drove to Slab City. And so this is the cover of that book. And the thing about this book, I just thought I'd explain, is I was not a full-time slabber. I was essentially a tourist, really. You know, I was going in. I did spend some time there, and then I would leave. I left. So the van that I was in signifies that I was sort of moving in and moving out. I was not a permanent slabber. I did get given a slab name because people like me, and I hung out, and my slab name was London. So it's an ex-military base. They just further down, like in these hills, is where they built the Osama bin Laden compound that they eventually raided. So they knew it was the compound, and so they made a fake compound, and they would sort of practice. So it's got lots of military things going on there, but this is an unused military base. There's a man holding a machete here, by the way. You can't really see it, but that's a hand with a machete. Just, it's not all friendly. And this is how the place felt. It felt really great. People were kind, generous, and giving, or they were extremely violent and not so cool. So this book is trying to express that photographically, and it will show you some of the people that I met and some of the things that I encountered. That's my van. Scooby-Doo van. Let's quickly check my time, because okay, we're good, I think. This was her 99th jump into the hot springs, and she was counting every time. So she's like 96, jump, 97, jump, 98, jump. And on the 99th jump, she twisted, pressed the button, and that's the picture I got. So she was the flying bird, and this is the crashed bird on the next page. This was a lovely young man at a wedding, and he put on his best wedding outfit for that. This was quite a scary man.
Oh, God.
This is there's absolutely no there's no plumbing, there's no electricity, there's no nothing. So if you need to go to the toilet, this is kind of how you go to the toilet if you're lucky. This is the camp. A lot of the camps had barbed wire and bottles hanging up. So at night, if anyone was going to try and steal your stuff, you would hear it. A lot of the slabbers have dogs as well, which they use for company, but also for security. Almost everyone is into solar power. One person there was inventing a solar power bike, which is pretty amazing. Oh, sorry. If anyone's offended by just like, sorry. Guys, for the next, I do apologise. I forgot the warning on that one. But anyway, this is Tom, and he almost sort of represents God. He was just this amazing guy that had lived there for many, many years. And he was in the Rainbow Tribe. And I asked him, what was the most drugs you ever did in one day, Tom? And he said something, he's like, in 1973, I think I did 40 LSD tabs.
Oh my God.
Which I think is pretty impressive. Like, not that I'm condoning drugs, but it was just like, wow. Like, wow.
Aww.
The dogs, everyone loves the dogs.
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to get in the water yourself. And there's this famous monument there. I don't know if any of you know that, but there's a famous monument that is at Slab City. And a lovely young lady that I met there. And now we're going into the darkness. Okay, so that's what this picture signifies. This lady lives in a hole because it's cool. And so if she lives down under the ground, it's cooler because it gets up to about 50 degrees Celsius. It's like 120 degrees Fahrenheit. It's pretty hot. I met Dan, who kind of became my security, and I bought him lunch, and I met his ex-girlfriend and his current girlfriend, and they were lovely, really lovely, but they had a interesting arrangement. Oopsie. And so these pictures, I quite like this section, the blue, the red, and the green. And if anyone is interested in, not that we are, but if anyone is interested in buying marijuana in Slab City, people generally like their van a certain color. Okay? So I'm back in my van again because you have to remember that I don't actually live there. Okay? I'm just visiting. There's amazing, extremely brilliant children who live in Slab City who don't go to school, but they have been brought up by their mothers, mainly mothers, and they sell lemonade that they make themselves. There's a skateboard park there. I didn't give it a go. There's a pirate camp. That's the pirate camp. And that's a pirate. They actually drink rum in order to be like legit pirate. This is a cave that someone lives in your wonderful country, but chose to live there. And the reason that he chose to live there is because he was an Iraqi war veteran and the desert was his thing. So he came back to America and decided that houses weren't really for him and that he was going to dig his own cave. And I got to know him, and his name was Caveman. And I'm still friends with Caveman. And he's one of the most amazing people you'll ever meet. But he lives in a cave. And I remember I lost contact with Caveman at one point, and I asked someone whether they had any contact with Caveman. I said, "Do you have an email?" I said, "No, Caveman doesn't have email." Yeah, okay, yeah. Fair enough. But I took this picture before I knew Caveman, and it was really quite frightening to stand there and photograph something that he did not know what was in that hole. I was really scared. It's another pirate. It's a bad foot. An illegal bar. Guy called Badger. There's toys everywhere. It's really sort of a very surreal place. It's not a good place for cats, to be absolutely honest. If I'm absolutely honest with you, it's not a good place for cats. The dogs totally run the roost. George, Vietnam War veteran, where people go to wash. People really love animals in Slab City. It's not a real gun, and she pointed it the other way even. So just to let you know, this picture looks like someone who's kind of being a little bit misbehaving with a gun, but it's absolutely not the case. But the picture's good. Trampolining, and we're going back into the darkness again. There's a fair amount of bad drugs going on there, so it was a little bit of a frightening place at times. I often wonder whether this would be safe for web, or if, like on Instagram. I wonder whether Instagram would accept it because you can't see anything, but something's happening. this is the rattlesnake that I almost trod on. And Dan, who we mentioned earlier, pushed me aside and took its head off with a spade. And he did save my life, because if I had trodden on it, it's about a 2-hour drive to a hospital, and I would have needed to have been moved by helicopter. Or anyway, I wouldn't have been in good shape. The body and the head moved independently for about half an hour. Extraordinary. The next day, Dan, this might be a bit much, I'm sorry if it's going to sort of, but the next day, Dan had a staff with the skin wrapped around it, and he'd eaten it that night. Crazy. Okay. Doing good. This is a tree that somebody who was extremely probably high had decorated. This is a fire, a meth fire. So people who are trying to make meth, sometimes it goes wrong, and they generally burn down their homes. My strong advice is that don't go anywhere near meth. That's going to ruin everyone. Never. And I met lots of very interesting people there, really extraordinary people. Some of the people I met there who were very young are dead now. This guy, he died last year. So it's a sad place. And it's a happy place, but it's like intense. There's not really much not much tennis, not much golf. And that's the last picture in that book. I had a very nice lady write a brilliant essay about Slab City for me. I'm not going to read it to you now because we've got stuff to do. We're talking about pictures, but the essay is really good. I'm so happy with the essay. She had been working for Facebook with Mark Zuckerberg, really high up, and then she got really upset with the situation there, and she decided to leave, and she went to Slab City for a month to decompress. Okay, and so that's that body of work. And I'm going to very quickly show you a more recent body of work. It's a little bit less challenging, but it actually really helped me during the pandemic. This is, I moved to the Netherlands in 2020 in February. And in March, everyone knows what happened. March 2020, we were all in lockdown and COVID hit. And I'm absolutely, I can't not photograph. I have to, it's like sort of scratching an itch. But there was nobody out. It was a new country and we weren't allowed to go anywhere really. And I discovered an industrial estate about 5 miles up the road. I'd been going to buy some AstroTurf for the garden and I took a wrong turning and I turned down this one road. There's just one road that had these amazing colourful buildings down it. And so the book is called Industrieweg, which means industry way in Dutch, and it's the road name. It kept me happy for about 2 years. I'd just go there and photograph and I'd be in the light and look at the colours. And so it's a very different type of work. And I think it's important, well, for me anyway, is to change it up. I don't want to just do the same thing. I want to reinvent myself. I don't mind failing along the way. I don't mind succeeding along the way. But I like to do different things. So this took a couple of years. And I just stand in the light and the quiet, and there was nobody there. And I just look at colours, and it was like therapy. It was like colour therapy. This picture took so long to take. Everything had to be straight. Oh. Sometimes I'd start to feel faint because I was really like holding my breath and really trying to stay still. And sometimes I thought that maybe sometimes I forget to breathe because I was really, really trying to get it straight. And I told my partner and my friends, I said, if I'm ever found like dead, industry dead, it's because I probably just like keeled over because I forgot to breathe. So everything is straight. All of these lines are straight. I got completely obsessed with everything having to be straight and not using a tripod. All down one street. I'm obsessed with making this a perfect rectangle. Stood there for about an hour, trying to get it right. I think that's the last picture. And I think it's 7 o'clock because I'm really good with time. That's me.
We're questions, so we don't have a mic, so just
It's
have to
okay.
raise your hand and shout.
Right, any questions?
Do people ever get mad at you or like fret you about pictures that you've taken?
No, not at all. And it's because I generally do everything with a smile on my face. I'm generally not bad. I know that I'm not doing anything bad. And if people do say, "What are you doing?" I generally answer honestly and say, I like the light in your hair, or I like the color of your jacket. I love, but the way I answer is genuine. If you lie, if you're doing something bad, if you're doing something sneaky, and someone says, "What are you doing?" Those people generally have a little bit of a pause because they've been caught, and you kind of lie, and people understand that. People know when they're being lied to, and so I just go out with a smile on my face, and I feel very comfortable doing what I do, and I'm not sneaky. And if anyone asks me what I'm doing, I generally tell the truth, and I haven't had no problems in 25 years.
So what brought you here?
Well, Professor Bick and her work, which I really, really admire. And so I know her work, and she knows my work, and she invited me to come out and talk. But I've been in America for the last month. I haven't shown you, so I showed you the Slab City work, but I'm very interested in America and all of its pros and all of its cons. You do realize that you're living in an extraordinary time in an extraordinary country. but I'm not necessarily going to go like, USA. It's very interesting. And as a photographer, especially as an outsider, I really sort of revel in how interesting it is and some of the collisions and some of the juxtapositions that are going on right now. And you should, well, I'm sure you already are, but it's very interesting. Yeah.
In being an outsider, most of what you've done since the London street photography has been being an outsider. Has that been do you see yourself maybe making work that is sort of the place that you live in, or is that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I am making work in the place that I live in, and I think the best work that you make is the place that you live in. Because, so America is difficult for me because it costs me money, and I expect in about 20 years' time I'll have a body of work on America. But the place that you live in is extremely important. Don't be one of those people that say, oh, I'm so bored of Charleston. Get up every day and go, wow, I live in Charleston. I've come here and every single street is an Edward Hopper painting for a start. The light's extraordinary. You are very, very, very lucky people. Okay, so anyone that says, so bored of where I live, move. Go and move then, because you have to be interested in where you live, because that's where you do most of your work. All right. I often say, you can do three things. You sort of have where you live, and that's going to be big work, and that's going to probably be your best work. And then you can do the country that you live, and that's pretty tricky. And then you can, go on your holidays to India, and that's going to take a long time to do that work because you're never there. So where you live is really important, and you must absolutely go for it here. And if you think it's boring, just change your mindset. Get up, because it's not boring. Any other questions? No.
So I'm sorry, are you here on sabbatical? Are you staying here, or are you here for a period of time?
So I am a photographer, commercial photographer. I travel a lot doing my commercial work, my personal work. So I've been in Los Angeles. I've been driving around sort of the west. I'm about to go to the south. I've just come to the southeast. And so I plan trips at the moment in America to make photographs. Yeah.
And Slab City, when did you do that?
Slab City was 2 years, 2018.
And it was deliberate, like I had never heard of it, and
I
it's
know.
so unbelievable.
It's a completely unbelievable place. I discovered it through my friend who lent me the van, Jared. He lent me the Scooby-Doo van and said, you should go to Slab City because I think you'll be good there because you've got the accent, which works a treat, to be absolutely honest, with American people. And I turned up and I was accepted. I was scared of places, but I generally just treated everyone how I expect to be treated myself. And I was accepted there for 4 months, and it was a privilege to be there and to live there and to be looked after by people there. And I did understand that it was an extraordinary place. I mean, can you believe that this place is in your country right now?
One more question.
Speaking for a lot of the students who go to college in Charleston, majority of us aren't native to the South. So do you think if you're going to start doing work in the South, like there's definitely a lot of Southern pride and Southern history, which is both negative and positive. So like, how do you think as a Londoner, what are the things you're thinking about in documenting South America?
Yeah, I mean, as far as, what I do first is I travel around and I get a feel for it. I learn about the history. I research the history. I speak to people. And what I'm really interested in is having firsthand experience. I can read about the place, book by someone who tells me something, but I actually want to meet the people, speak to the people, learn the history, and firsthand experience is so important. So at the moment, I'm kind of recceing this part of the country. And then I'll start working probably with more, seriousness when I know more. But yeah, first-hand experience is important. I haven't shown you some of the work that I did, but I have photographed 2 mass shootings in America. I was sent by Time magazine to Las Vegas to document the largest mass shooting in American history. And that was extremely interesting. And I learned about guns and your culture and gun culture. And so I had first-hand experience of the aftermath of a mass shooting. I went to 2. And I don't think you can write about it unless you've been there, felt it. And so that's the most important thing for me, is like be there and feel it, and then kind of start working, But yeah, I hope that answers your question. Yeah, thank you, it was a good one. All right, dinner time.